Hello out there, AutoCrit world. I am Daniel, and we are going to be talking about our Change the World challenge today. What is this challenge? Can you still get involved? The answer is yes, and it's really awesome. One prompt, endless possibility, as we say. We do have some questions I can see here already about the challenge. Don't worry, we're going to address all those questions today. That is what this is about. So let's begin with the Change the World. And I just realized I need to move myself up. I'm going to do this every time I do one of these live streams for Change the World. Uh, what we asked everybody to do, or you can still do it, is from our log line, create a world and eventually a story synopsis. And once you have that formed, you can go ahead and submit it and be eligible for our grand prize. Now, no matter what, if you just sign up for the challenge, you are also eligible for our prize draw, and that will be done next week. So if you haven't signed up yet, there it is. Sign up. It's a lot of fun. And yes, so let's move on a little bit further here. The log line, in case you don't know what a log line is a brief summary that states the central conflict, often providing both a synopsis and an emotional hook to simulate interest. And we gave you a very vague log line on purpose so that you could fill in those gaps and create a memorable world. Like I said, don't forget to sign up. There are, in fact, prizes. Ultimately, what we want you to do when you submit is to give us a brief synopsis of your story. So we have things. So do we send two entries, logline synopsis? Nope, you just have to send one. What we're looking for, we're it's not exact in terms of there's a lot of different ways you could approach it, but what we're looking for is 1,000 words that summarize how you took our prompt, our log line, and you formed a world around it that also related to the characters and the plot. See, we could have just said make a world, but then we might just get like an encyclopedia entry. And we really want you to think about how the world affects your story. So, what we want you to do is not only give us all those world building details, but also tell us how it relates to a story that you created. And in case you didn't want to create a major conflict, we gave you a central conflict in order to do it. Um, Somebody's asking, where do we submit it? Don't worry, you'll get the submission link in just a moment. Just going over some of these rules. So if you have any other questions, feel free to throw it in the chat. I'll get to it about what we're looking for. But don't focus so much on the format as much as like what we are trying to get at, which is what I said is it's a world building challenge where we want you to build a world around our plot that we gave you, and the idea is to task you to hone in on those world building skills, but not just world build for no reason, to go back to the plot and then give us how it's all relatable. So ultimately, what we need to see is world building, which is related to the conflict that we gave you. Now, there are some rules. Do not go over 1,000 words, or we might just feed you to the dragons, or at least your manuscript to the dragons. They really love books, they're delicious. Please do not give us just the chapter one of your book. Because that's not really what we're looking for. Because it's only going to tell us about a little bit of your world, and you won't even get to 1,000 words in it in this. So don't just start writing as if it's a book. Think of it more as really like a Wikipedia entry, a summary, a cliff notes, as it were, of what it is that you are talking about. And I know some of you say, wow, this is really challenging. I don't usually write these. I know, right? But this is helpful. This is a helpful skill to have because eventually, if you're going to try to sell your work to anybody, you're going to need to know how to summarize it, right? So, learning how to summarize is also a bit kind of part of the challenge, let's be honest. Okay, submitting art, you might come up with some beautiful art for your world. That's wonderful, but unfortunately that is not what this challenge is about. We might do a challenge like that if you'd like to, like a cover art contest or something, but just leave the images off. Text only, please, and please make sure it's legible. Just you might be like, will you get entries like this? Oh, you'd be surprised. I just say. But if you are paranoid about things like what is the font size, do I double space, or all that, this isn't that kind of challenge, right? This is really about your ideas. So we're not really looking at that sort of formatting thing. Even things like grammar, yes, please be understandable, but we're not going to be judging your lines, on a grammar basis. We're really looking at the ideas that you're conveying. That's really the goal of this. Now, the log line that we gave you was a world weary courier takes on one last assignment, only to discover the package they're transporting holds a shocking secret. When a momentary lapse in judgment leaves them stranded in an unfamiliar territory, or in unfamiliar territory, excuse me, they must fight for survival against the elements and a ruthless organization hell bent on retrieving the cargo. I don't know, I was going into like accents there, I was getting dramatic. Um, so don't worry. Yes, no. See, this is what we're trying to avoid. Thank you, S. Gray. You broke my heart. Okay. But this is the log line we gave you, right? So you can see it's a fairly basic shell of a story. It doesn't really explain, where it is, what all these different things mean, and that's the whole idea, right? We want you to build a world around this. Now, if you're just coming in now and you're like, well, I signed up late for the challenge and I didn't even know what I was doing, you're fine because right now submissions are open for you to start submitting if you were ready. If you were not ready, if this is all new to you, or if you want to go back and edit, because we're going to do a little bit of discussing today about the challenge and you can ask questions and things like that. And I'll talk a little bit about world building. You do not have to submit right now. You can wait all the way up until Monday of next week. Granted, sooner rather than later, because we all know that writers tend to put things off, and we certainly don't want you to miss that deadline. But yes. Let's see here. Let me make sure I've answered the questions we've had so far. Now, if you're on our email list, you should have gotten an email just recently, like about an hour ago, with that link to submit. If you did not get that link, just make sure you're checking your email. It might end up in a weird email box or something like that. But I'm going to go ahead and give it to you here. It's just long, so it takes a little bit to type out. Now, keep in mind, you do need to be signed up for the challenge to be eligible. So just because I'm giving you this form doesn't mean it's like a little workaround. Please sign up as well. But here it is. And I will let you look at it and type it out if you want to, if you so desire. It also, I believe, is part of the description of this video. If you look at the description of the video as well. Now, some people are asking when we say synopsis, like what specifically do we mean? We don't necessarily need an entire outline of everything that happens in your book because remember, this is a world building challenge, right? So if there are parts of your story that don't really involve the world building, don't worry about it. You don't even have to really tell us the ending. We're not like an agent trying to option your book. So if it's a matter of, once the pieces are in place, then it's like, I don't know, you're setting up like a big war and it's like it ends with a dramatic war. Well, we don't necessarily even have to know who wins, who loses, things like that. As long as it's not really a factor of the world building, you can leave it at that. You do only have 1,000 words. And remember, less is more. I would say you're going to likely increase your chances if you get lean and mean and you're straightforward. Don't worry about it being like marketing copy. Somebody asked, like, what's the difference between a blurb and a synopsis? Blurb is like what you put on the back of a book to try to sell people on it. It's a little bit vague. It's asking a lot of rhetorical questions. It's very like marketing copy. Don't worry about that. We're not judging whether or not you can market your own book. We're just looking at your ideas, right? So if it's quite straightforward and it's like in this world, it's blah blah blah, and then a man goes and blahs blahs blah, and it's really straightforward. You're not going to get docked for that if your ideas are solid, right? If you're telling it in just a straightforward, matter of fact way, that is okay. Don't worry about it. If there's gaps in your world, that's not necessarily going to harm you either. You could see how last week we had RJ Barker on, and if you haven't seen that conversation, go back. because RJ Barker was amazing. And he was talking about how when he starts out, he's like, and the thingy and the stuff, and if you have gaps like that, that's okay. If this is a little sketchy, like, like a sketch of what you're doing, again, if your ideas are solid, that might not preclude you from winning. Obviously, the more fleshed out, the better, but get involved. And we're going to try to have some like honorable mentions and things like that. We're gonna try to highlight a lot of the ones that we enjoyed, in addition to having a grand winner. Somebody said, when is it due? The August 23rd is the closing the prize. Yes. The closing is because that is when we close the submissions, and the prize giveaway at that point is going to be a random draw. And then we're going to have a judging section, and we should have the results of that quite quickly. That is our goal. Obviously, we're going to see how much people submit, because if we just get a tidal wave, we might have to delay a bit, because we do want to take it seriously enough and give everybody a fair shot. But we'll see. Oftentimes we get a large amount of people excited, and then they don't really follow up and submit something. So we'll see what happens. Please do, though. Please do. Somebody asked, is do we need to score it in AutoCrit first? No, you don't. I mean, that might help you, of course, because it's going to show you how lean your and readable your synopsis is. So I'd certainly recommend it. Um, and I would expect, actually, it should be high, because it's not. It's something that should be very readable. So I would be looking for a higher score than you normally get, to be honest. And I think then you're on the right track of what you should be looking for. All right, just want to make sure I'm saying something. Is swearing okay? It is okay, but my question is if you're trying to get into like the voice of a character, that might not necessarily help you. It just depends. Like, you could kind of tell the synopsis in the voice of a character, but what we're looking for is a little bit more. Like I said, think more like what you would find like Wikipedia or like a Cliff Notes or something. It's a little bit more of this objective kind of. Whoops, sorry. A little bit. Um, it just less of a voice than that is probably going to be clearer, because again, we're trying to get to your ideas, right? Not so much something like that. I love this. I moved myself from the glare on your TV. Well, that's good to know. I'll try to put myself on the left side for that reason from here on out. Some people have asked, like, what if it's first person, if it's third person. Generally, this is going to be third person, because again, it's going to be a synopsis. So it's going to be like, this man does this, and this woman does this, and it's usually past tense. Although sometimes I've seen them written in present tense. You're so nervous. Don't be so nervous. This is fun. And really, if you finished it and you said 3 beta readers, so you've already submitted it to 3 beta readers, well, you're in great shape already. Somebody asked about the font, and I said, it's anything goes, but please make sure it's readable. And I will say, even though Comic Sans is readable, it's not necessarily going to do you any favors, because I'm not a fan. All right, so I have Catherine here joining me. Hi, Catherine. How's it going over there? Oops, sorry, I muted you. Let me unmute you. There you go.
It's good. It's good to be here. Excited to see all the questions and everybody participating in the challenge.
Yes. So, one thing that I wanted to do, and I can do this with Catherine, is we're going to do a little bit of brainstorming about this challenge. We did a little bit of this already, but for those of you maybe who haven't seen this prompt before, maybe you just kind of joined us, or if you're looking for those last minute things and you want to make sure you got everything buttoned up before you submit, we're going to go through and I'm going to show you some of the things that I noticed with this prompt, and what, if I were in your shoes, what I would be looking at. All right, so we start with this world weary courier, right? So there's lots of questions with that. Why are they weary of the world, and what exactly is a courier in this world, right?
Because it could be
Giving
much more than letters.
It could be, right? It could be anything, right? You could be. It's basically just from the. It's just abstracting that term. It could be taking any sort of package to any sort of place, or any sort of messenger of any of that. Of that sort. And then world weary. It's like, well, this implies that they're tired of the world, obviously, but why? Is it because the world actually is a bad place? Or is it because actually the world is fine and they just are sick of it for some reason? Or, got lots of possibilities there. Ooh, Cassie Ellis went very abstract with the courier type. I'm curious. Did you like, is it the font? Is it courier font that's
Oh no.
personified? See,
Nothing
this
wrong
is,
with courier font. Just saying.
yeah, right. One last assignment. Okay, so now we've established that whoever this character is, this is the last time that they're doing something. Lots of reasons why that could be the case. Are they older? Are they retiring? Are they trying to get rid of this person? you know? Lots of questions to unpack there.
A senior
Annette,
in med school.
yeah, right, right. Yeah, right. One last assignment. Maybe it's some sort of test, right? Maybe they need to do this assignment to kind of prove something, and so they do it. How long until the deadline? Like I said, Monday at, well, it's basically Tuesday at midnight or Monday at 11:59 p.m. Think of it that way, because by Tuesday, the next live stream, we're done. And that's when we're going to do our prize giveaway for the random draw, and we'll start looking at all those entries. And of course, we'll also be looking at some of the entries that are standing out, because that'll be lots of fun. So we'll be doing that next week. And for those of you who submit, you have a chance to potentially get some live feedback. So that's pretty cool. And so keep that in mind. Could it be that the narrator tainted view of the world in Carrier? It could be, right? It could be that, like I said, the world weary courier doesn't really have a good reason to be that. They're biased for some reason, or they're tired of it because they're just bored, or who knows what. Oh yeah, so package. Sorry, so just focused on that. What is this package? Of course, a package can be almost anything. Eastern time, yes, but remember, don't wait until the last minute because you might miss it. So I would suggest, don't think of it like that. Think of it as 11:59 on Sunday, and then you'll be in much better shape.
Exactly.
Just give yourself more wiggle room. Um, so package. What is this package in this world, right? It could be data. It could be a thing. It could be information.
It could be
Questions, questions.
bodyguarding a person that they're calling a package.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a person could be called a package, which would tell you something about how that person is viewed in the world or by the organization. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right. They're transporting. We don't tell you how they're transporting, right? So there's all kinds of options. We don't know the technology level. Somebody immediately said that this blurb, or this logline feels a little bit cyberpunky, but that's not really the only way you can go with it, right?
Oh no, there's a lot
And
here.
there's a lot of ways to go with it. And some of you might be thinking, well, I don't usually write, sci-fi or fantasy or something like that. Well, I mean, you can look at this as a challenge to just try something different, right? But, let's say you write romance. You could write a romance where this is a plot. This might not be the main plot, but this might be the subplot, because often romances do have subplots. And maybe this is like, Casablanca, and it's a war-torn country, and there's people that are having relationships across enemy lines, or all kinds of, so don't necessarily assume that just because of the way that we're phrasing this and maybe what immediately comes to mind, that you have to kind of stick with that. If you like to write literary fiction, if you like to write romance, you can adapt this for the challenge, for sure.
Mhm.
Could there be more than one world? Well, I mean, if you want to say, is there like the possibility of alternate worlds? Well, yeah, because that's part of your world. Essentially there's only one story world, right? Because even if you tell a world with multiple realities, like a portal fantasy or something, when we talk about world building, we're only talking about the world of your book, right? But there could be like more than one planet, more than one dimension, more than one reality in your world of your book, for sure. Doing a time traveler fallen angel theme.
Nice.
Nice. a Hawaiian type world.
I love that,
Interesting.
Wendy.
I mean, that sounds nice and relaxing and beautiful, so I'm all for that.
Although there's somebody on, I'm like, they do Hawaiian murder mysteries, and I'm like, I could totally see this playing into Hawaiian murder mystery.
Yeah, right. Lots of things. Listening to these plots, I know this will be a true challenge. Well, that's all right. Like I said, you are going to find that this is helpful. Now, we had S. Gray. You said you're hitting your head because you realized you submitted the wrong version when you hadn't edited yet.
Oh,
Um, send me an email and we'll try to get that fixed. So we just opened it. Generally speaking, we only want you to submit one. But you're on the stream all the time. We go way back. We might make an exception for you. All right. Holds. We're very. This is this is fun, right? We're not. We're
that's
not. We're
right.
not. We're not going to be giving away a car at the end. I'm sorry. But but this is fun, and it's to get you writing, and I love to see how people are getting inspired and they're working on projects and putting it out there. That's what this is about.
Hmm.
Yours turned into a hillbilly cyberpunk. Okay.
Interesting.
I didn't even know that was a genre, but maybe we could make it one. Like
It,
Amazon's adding subcategories all the time. Like we could like blitz them with like a bunch of like hillbilly cyberpunks from the AutoCrit community, and then they would just have to add us into the category, right? That'd be awesome.
yes.
Well, it's like they have the cozy mysteries with recipes. That's like a category, which I think is hilarious. Appalachian sci-fi. I love Appalachia. I love sci-fi. So you got me. You got me on that. So what is the shocking secret, right? Now, in my opinion, because it's a world building challenge, I would immediately gravitate that this is a shocking secret about the world itself. It
Right.
could change the world. Kind of weird what I did there, right? But it could change. It could change the world for either the main character, or for the organization, or for everybody in the world, or something, right? It's an earth-shattering thing. But what is it, right? Possibilities. You got possibilities.
Only you know.
And so the fun thing about that is one of the fun things to do with a world. And this is something I actually recommend everybody always do when they generate a world. And that is they figure out how to break it. Because if you understand the vulnerable spot of your world, well, you've identified a pinpoint and you may never use it, but it's just helpful to know. And this would be really in any sort of situation, right? Even like I said, even in a romance, even if it's a romance and the setting is like a restaurant and it's like struggling to make odds, and then meanwhile there's romance going on. Well, again, you kind of figure out, okay, how can you like kind of break that world? What would dramatically shift it? Well, of course, you could have it turns out that the restaurant is really a front to something else. You could have that perhaps the land that the restaurant is on has some secret to it that has an impact, like so many different things, right? And you
Hmm.
could decide that either that would be somewhere you'd want your plot to go, or maybe not, but it's just helpful to know where those weak spots are, right? And
Yes.
things like that.
And I'm seeing a
And you
lot
don't
of
know, and you don't
questions
have to
about
go like
the.
outlandish. I'm not saying like it's really the like a hell mouth or something. Like, no, if you're not writing that kind of story, no. But you can stay within the confines of your genre. But there's lots of possibilities. People find out uh things about the world all the time that we didn't know, right? And so what is something that could dramatically shift how people view your world or change your world or things like that? Always helpful to know.
And I see a lot of questions about, do you need to tell the secret? And I just want to say, in a typical synopsis, yes, you would tell the
Yeah,
secret
please
because
do
there's
in
no
ours. Please
spoilers.
just spill all the beans, because what we're looking for, like I said, we're not looking for a first chapter. We're not looking to like get into the actual writing. What we're looking for is
Right.
your ideas, right? And if you and ultimately, you might decide, wow, this is really good. I really like what I'm doing, and then you might tweak it and put it out there, and that would be great. Um, but for the purposes of this challenge, think of this. Think of us kind of like the way you might present something to an agent. And if an agent asks you
Hmm.
for a synopsis, they really want to know everything. They
Right.
don't want any secrets.
They don't want to have to read your 400-page novel to figure out
Nope.
what's coming.
No. And that includes big twists, right? So if you have a big
Hmm.
twist ending idea, you got to let us know, because again, that's part of your world building, right? And don't leave that, don't keep that from us, because then we're going to not know all the really creative things you were going to do.
And I think that ties in really well, Daniel, to making the point don't forget the world in the twist, which is part of the plot. Like, here's the shocking secret, and then the world changes. Here's the twist at the end, and then the world changes again.
Yeah.
Like, that's part of your
Yeah,
world
and
building.
it doesn't require a physical twist, right? Like
Mm-mm.
often in like a horror novel or that kind of story, they end up in a place and then they find out the shocking secret is it has some sort of horrible backstory and therefore it's like a cursed place. And it's the same place it's always been. It's just they have that knowledge and all of a sudden their perception of the place completely shifts, right? Or it's like you find out some shocking secret about what the government has been covering up in your world. Well, that's going to change the way you view everything about what anything that interacts with that secret, right? And so it doesn't require it actually physically changing, but it does shift the goalposts or shift the view of the character on it for sure. And yes, so I would say shocking secret, you got an opportunity there. And then we have this unfamiliar territory. So now we have the possibility of talking about a character who's reaching a part of the world they do not know. Now, why don't they know this? And it's possible that nobody knows this. Is this unfamiliar territory just for the world weary courier, the main character? Or is this unfamiliar territory for absolutely everyone? You get to decide, right? You get to decide. And remember, the unfamiliar territory can be as minor as, again, you have that secret, right? And then that could land them in unfamiliar territory, which is someone involved with perceiving the world in a different way. It's like now they know the world works like this. And so that means when they go here, it feels different. You could even do it like that. You've got lots of possibilities, lots of possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
Just started yours now. Good, good. See, this is what you like to see. Writing. That's what this is all about. It's getting you back to the keyboard, getting you some ideas going. And who knows? You might get a book synopsis out of it and you might decide to turn it into a whole book yourself, or it might just inspire other books or things like that. It's always helpful to do these sort of exercises and just kind of and the nice thing too is we give you that accountability, right? Because we're here
Mm-hmm.
and you have the
Yep.
possibility, if you submit, of some giving you some live analysis of it, which will be lots of fun. Plus, of course, you could be the grand winner. I'm just excited because I'm seeing so many interesting ideas.
I love all the different genres represented. This is great.
Yes. Yes. Fish out of water, right. World building was unfamiliar territory. Well, that's what we try to do with our challenges, right? All throughout the year, AutoCrit has different challenges, and our goal is to really give you exercises, right? We want to give you true challenges. And so our hope is that we are asking you to do things that you've never done before, because that's how you level up. That's how you get better at the craft. And hopefully we have lots of fun doing it too. I think we do. So Jack says, do you have any examples where the synopsis failed the overall story or the story failed to live to the synopsis? Yes, of course. Because there is a big difference, right? There's a big difference between the ideas and the execution.
Yeah.
Um, but there's also a big difference between the ideas and the execution on the ideas in the idea stage, if that makes, if I haven't lost you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit more than just that what if. Often people just on the street have great what ifs all the time. They're like, oh, what if fireworks could talk and they would share secrets across countries and they had this whole like secret underground organization. You might be like, well, that's kind of fun and weird. But then it's like, but therefore what, right? um
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the therefore what is where something goes from being kind of a fun premise to just eh. And then you can take that premise and you can form it into an idea that's more fleshed out. But even then we have the execution, right? Are
Yeah.
you executing on that? So there's multiple levels. So yes, you could definitely be somebody who could write a great synopsis and not a great book. And kind of vice versa, to be honest. I know people that are really good at writing books and they're very hard at summarizing their own stuff. It
Yeah.
is good skill to be able to do both. It is, because ultimately at some point in your life you're going to have to summarize your thoughts for somebody else. They just don't have that much time all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Really rarely do they have the time. to really do a deep dive. Especially people of influence, who are the people you need most of all. The people that you need that are those signal boosters. Well, guess what? Everybody wants that signal boost, and so they've got a precious amount of time to listen to your pitch. So you
Yeah.
really need to learn how to summarize. So take that as part of this challenge for sure. That can be good. I love this. Strong hairspray usually holds up against the elements. That could be part of your world building, right? Again, when we talk about the elements, I love the out of the box thinking. But yes, what does this mean? What are the elements, right? Is this just the weather? Is this people? Is this animals? Like, what is it?
See, now I'm imagining this exhausted stylist bringing this package of hairspray into work, and it's got a label they don't know, and they go to use it, and it's something really odd, like the spray on shoes from Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs.
No, exactly. Submitted your synopsis and now writing a book for it. Kind of backers for me. It's true, but to be honest, this is something that could happen to you if you end up as a published author. It's not uncommon that when you become a published author, that actually for your next work, they look for the
Mm-hmm.
synopsis first. Now, that doesn't keep writers from writing a whole book and then just giving them the synopsis and then being like, oh, look, I actually already have it done. But, ultimately what they're trying to do is save you the time from pursuing something they don't think is market ready.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know in the business world, you know we can take off our fun creative hat and put on our business hat for a second. In the
Mm-hmm.
business world, there's not only the quality of your work, there's what the market is looking for right this moment, what's a hot commodity. And especially if you're dealing with a publisher, like, they're not going to go after the niche stuff. They're going to try to go for the stuff that's really hot right now,
Mm-hmm.
although that
Yeah.
means hot hopefully 2 years from now when your book gets out there. But it's but so this is something again that you might want to develop, because if you develop a professional relationship with somebody, they're going to want to see it. Is the
Yeah.
synopsis a brief outline for pantsers? Yes. That's the fun thing, right? If you're typically a pantser, this is tough. This is usually the kind of thing you would do after you do your entire first draft. You would
That's
go
right.
back and you'd be like, what did I actually write? So you may be stretching yourself a little bit, but just think of it this way. Think of yourself as pantsing like flash fiction or something, and then to
Mm-hmm.
expand that. Like, try to think of it more from that standpoint.
And
That
it
might
doesn't
help.
lock you in to how your world develops. I
No.
say this as a pantser. If
Yeah.
you look at it as, here are really the play by plays that make your book stand out, that make your book come together in a unique way, and then how they get to those points is where you do your pantsing thing. Um, and that ties in exactly to what Daniel was just saying about publishers and the synopsis. Even if you've written your first book and you go back and write the synopsis after, if you're going to pitch like a series, they're going to want a short synopsis for all the other books in the series up front, most likely, because they want to see, where is the series going. Well, of course, you might not have written books 4, 5, and 6, but so pantser or not, you should have at least a vague idea
Yes.
if you're going, big with it.
I'm just laughing because I'm reminded by RJ Barker, because he's very much like a pantser type. Like, he just writes very organically. He's similar to you. He starts with just a very small premise, and he just does it. And then he's like, and my first draft is awful, and then I fix it. Right. That's typical. That's typical of everybody, but particularly pantsers, just because they really don't know what they're doing. I mean, no offense to pantsers, but they are flying by the seat of their pants, and they're just producing and producing, and then they have to kind of hone in and trim. Right. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem with that is that, yeah, he got signed, and then he was like, oh, and then they wanted to know what's in the next 2 books, and so I had to just kind of come up with something and then hope I liked it later, because I wasn't prepared for that sort of thing. And yeah, it's true. It's true. Unfortunately, a plan is going to be somewhat necessary. Somewhat
Mm-hmm.
necessary. All right. Um, we have a question. Will there be a critique once it's read? We unfortunately don't have the resources to critique every entry. We can't promise that, because we do expect to get a lot of them. However, we will be picking some of them for these live sessions. If you want to guarantee yourself, though, a review of something, we do have a world building workshop, and that is coming up this Thursday. I mean, a week from Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And it will we'll be going into more depth about world building. So you're kind of in world building mode. You can learn a little bit more about it. And then at the end of that, there will be an analysis of a worksheet. It's not this prompt. It's different. It is a worksheet. So it allows you to build something completely from scratch and then get feedback on it. Some of the people in this live stream I know took the last world building workshop, so they could definitely chime in with their experience. Um, Ruthless organization here. Ruthless organization. So, what does that mean? What's a ruthless organization in this world? What does that mean? Right? Are they ruthless in general, or are they ruthless in the mind of the world weary courier? Because that's also true, right? Because sometimes something can come across really ruthless, and well, they're just very strict because they have to be, and you don't really realize it, and then you kind of realize it, and things like that. So that
Mhm.
is something to keep in mind. Well, thank you, Cassie. See, there we go. I remember you, Cassie, and she had a really cool world too. So
And
I have
ruthless organization
I
doesn't have
have
to be
lots of I have
crime.
lots of hope
So
for you for this challenge. I'm just saying the pressure's on.
yes.
Star student there. Okay. Retrieving the cargo. Yes, so they want to retrieve the cargo. So this is interesting, right? Because the package is holding a secret, okay?
Hmm.
And they want it. They don't want to destroy it. They want to get it back, right? Because you
Hmm.
might be like, now you could say maybe they want to get it back to destroy it. Fair enough. I'll give you that. I like this. Are they missing an important character named Ruth? If you want to make it that, that's fine. They're out of baby Ruths, and so they're really upset. Maybe there's a chocolate shortage. I don't know. I'm just,
Oh, what a
but
sad world.
that would be awful. Don't write that. No, I'm just kidding. If you write that, you might be like, I might be on your side because I love chocolate. Like, I'm gonna be like white knuckling that read.
Uh,
I needed a writer's block hammer. This looks promising. Yes, exactly. That is what we were trying to do, right? I love that idea. Do you mind if I borrow that, Sen? I'm gonna borrow that writer's block hammer. I love that. It's like, get rid of that writer's block. Hellbent seems to suggest scorched earth approach at all costs. It could, right? And that's interesting because again, that's like getting back to what Catherine was saying, right? The secret might affect the whole world. This organization's desperate attempt to get the cargo might literally have world implications.
like
World.
there's no more chocolate if they get it back.
That's horrible. Here. I can't handle that. I can't handle that. All right, so just remember, please sign up. No matter what, you are going to be eligible for prizes. This isn't just about judging because we want, and this isn't like a participation trophy idea. The idea is that you are writing, right? You are working, you are
Hmm.
doing something, and you are stretching yourself. And so we want to give away some prizes just for that because that's a lot and it's awesome. And I love how the community always steps up and manages to rise to these challenges. We give them these curveballs, and they're like, "I've never done this before, but I'm gonna do it." And then at the end of it, they're like, "Wow, I learned so much." Like that's what we love to see, right? Because we're here to help you grow as an artist. That's what we're about. And we'll be giving away some prizes. We'll have some fun next week with that. And like I said, we'll be picking out some examples to talk about. How many prizes to give? Quite a few, quite a few. I'm not going to give the exact details on that. More than one. No, quite a few, quite a few. Um, We had another question. I'm trying to find it. Oh, can there be more than one ruthless organization? Sure. Why not? We mentioned one in the log line. That doesn't mean they're the only one. They may not be the only courier, too. What if there's a competition? What if there's multiple couriers trying to get this package and they just happen to be the one that got it? Got possibilities. Got possibilities. Anything but taking away my chocolate. Pretty much. It's pretty much how I feel, too. Raise the stakes, everybody. Raise but as I was mentioning, if you want some surefire feedback, you can take our world building workshop. And if you would like more information about that, my little link here, Yes, right here. And that will be given by yours truly. So hopefully you like listening to me. I have a lot to say, always, just the way I am. And
But it's
I love.
always good.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I love talking about world building because I feel like world building is one of those things that everybody kind of loves to do, but they don't always do it in the most organized way. And so they miss out on a lot of things. They miss out on productivity because they can get what's called, world building disease, where you just basically want to figure out everything in your world and you just obsess about it, and it overwhelms you and you never get anything else done. But then the other problem is that if you don't really figure out a good system to step by step kind of ask the right questions, you often leave what I call free money on the ground. Like you just didn't take advantage of something your world could have offered if you just would have thought of the wrinkle effects of this and things like that. So what the workshop does is try to give you those shortcuts, tries to give you those best practices to take your brainstorming from this sort of just ethereal process you do and you don't really know like how you do it or rhyme or reason to it, to something that's a little bit more systematic, so that way you have a sense of when it's done, and you have a sense of you really did get everything out of the world that you could. So it's a lot of fun. I love giving the workshops for sure. Let's see what else we have. Take the workshops to see Daniel's shirt. That's awesome. That's great. All right.
Yeah, we have a couple questions. We had one. Are you going to ditch your hard hat next week, Daniel?
No, I'm still in world building mode next week, so the hard hat staying. Unless you think I should take it off, unless you're sick of it. I
No,
like
these
the
are good.
in case you haven't noticed, I like a little bit of pageantry in my presentation. It just makes it so much more fun, I think.
And
And
by the
again, we
way,
want it to be
our
fun. This could be a little intimidating, a little overwhelming at
oh
times,
yeah,
and we wanna keep it nice and fun and personal and all of that sort of stuff. All right,
and are
so
the writer mugs still available in the AutoCrit shop? There should be on our website under the merch
yes,
store.
which is shop.autocrit.com, I thought.
Yes. Yep.
I want to make sure. I'm going to type it in. Yes, shop.autocrit.com. Yes, indeed, we do have mugs. We also have merchandise from the different classes. If you've taken some of our classes and you want to show off you're an alumni, you can do that. You love your writers' mugs. Aw. We might, in fact, be giving away some writer mugs next week. If you want a little spoiler of prizes. Does the summary have to focus on the blurb or just address all the questions? You don't have to like do a word for word read address of the blurb, just what it sets up, right? And we understand that people are going to deviate from it, but I the winner is going to be from my standpoint. I'm not the only person judging this contest, but if you want to ask me what I'm looking for somebody who can kind of do what I did, highlight, and maybe you found other things to latch onto, but it's all springboards from that blurb, and it's a way to make or that log line, it's a way to make that log line your own. And what I really want to see, what I really, really, really want to see, just emphasizing this, is the implications of the world. Like I want to see how the world works with itself, with the characters. That's what I want to see more than anything else. I want to see something where it feels like there's a real cause and effect, and I'm really curious to know, what could happen next and things like that. Aw, thank you so much. You're so sweet. We have such a sweet community. I love it. All right, so we're gonna wrap this up with just a little bit about world building because, again, I know some of you typically don't do a lot of world building.
Hmm.
Maybe you work in genres where you don't really think about world building. It's just kind of more or less like normal world, for lack of a better word. So, why is world building so important? World building is really important because it establishes the framework where all the action takes place in your
Hmm.
story. And you might think that's kind of obvious, but no, if you really think about it, you know, the context of the action is very important, right?
Right.
The same action in a different context carries a very different meaning. And this is where this is important for things like I keep going back to these, but like romance or literary fiction or things like that, right? If you set up, let's say it's a literary fiction and real, it is supposed to be essentially, normal life, but you set up people, arguing about what they're going to have for dinner, but the context is they're impoverished living in a hotel versus they're living in a McMansion. Obviously, it's very different, right? And you're
Mhm.
talking about very different worlds. And you do need to put yourself in the shoes of that person and think about what their world looks like. And this
Mhm.
is true even if you're writing about something that's more or less, normal, for lack of a better word. Character, always relate character back to your world building, right? Or world building back to your character. There needs to be, this back and forth. You can, if you have a really, really amazing world, let's say it's a world in which, I don't know, animals can, glow in the dark and they can fly. That's pretty awesome and pretty fun. But like, what does it matter unless it has an impact on the people, right? How does it
Mhm.
affect the people? How would that affect people, like if animals
Mhm.
could do that, right? It would, of course, it would be different than the world we know. That's a pretty major difference, right? And then of course there would be people that would react in different ways. Some people might be irritated. It's like, well, I just want to sleep at night and I have a flying dog around my bedroom.
That's
And some
glowing.
people, right? And there'll be all kinds of reactions. Some people would take it very spiritual. They're like, well, these animals can float and they can go in the dark and we can't. So what does that say about their relationship to the spiritual side of things? Or there's so many different ways that would manifest. And that's something to think about, because often we get people that have this really cool what if idea, like something like, animals can fly and go in the dark, and then they have that, but it just feels like they just kind of, slapped it in, and otherwise the story could happen to anybody at any place at any time, and it's just kind of background excitement, and
Mhm.
that's not great. You often miss out on opportunities, right? You miss out on
Yeah.
opportunities to tell an interesting story. So always go back to character. Setting. The setting, this is something I already said. The setting can provide tension and elevate basic setups. The same situation in a different setting can take on a completely different meaning. And if you really do your world building well, then you can keep this in mind. Now, getting back to what I was saying about how to break your world, right? Well, you can think about this. What are the more uncomfortable places in the world, or in your main character's world, right? Where are the places they don't like to go to? The places that give them anxiety. Well, if you're in a place that gives you anxiety, you could be talking about, again, like what you're going to eat for dinner, and it has a very different context than when you're in a place that you're very comfortable at, right? And maybe you have a scene where you have to have a character talk about what they're having for dinner, and you're like, well, how do I make this interesting? And you
Mhm.
might decide, oh, well, I've actually thought about it in my world building, and I've realized, to this person, the way that they navigate the world, this location has this kind of baggage with them. So if I have this conversation here, it's going to be a completely different scene, and it's going to be much more interesting. So
Mhm.
it's something really to keep in mind. Again, I'm making the case for world building. and
Yeah.
even for and even for the Catherines out there who love to pants, I'm making the case that a little bit of thinking about it can help, because you
Yeah.
can avoid first draft moments where you have to go back and you have to fix things when you have this in mind as you're going into something. So
Yeah. Do it on the front end. It'll save you so much time, or at least while it comes up. Like,
yeah,
oh, here's this city. What is
right.
this city's laws? What is this city like? What do these people dress like? How does that affect their work? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and you can like pants your world building like that, right? But what I'm saying is, if you're coming into a scene and you're like, okay, this is a scene and I know I need this character to want to do this, and so they're gonna have
mhm.
to have this conversation. I don't know how to make that interesting. Then you can just ask yourself, well, where's the worst place that this could happen? Is there a way they
Absolutely.
could get there? What's something like that? You
Yep.
can ask those questions, and then you write the scene more interesting in the first place versus having to rewrite it later. And yeah, you can totally pants your world building, which and that's fine. Just like you can pants your writing, and it's fine. But these are the sort of questions to ask yourself as you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly.
skip the world building.
Don't skip the world building. It matters. And then I have a conflict. Is the world in conflict with your main character or in harmony with them? This is something to ask yourself. Now you might be like, well, the world's always in conflict with the main character. Not necessarily. It's not necessarily the world itself, right? It could be that the world is not really in conflict with your main character. There are people in the world or elements of the world that are, which is not quite the same thing.
Mhm.
And sometimes if you're writing something and you're like, oh, this is so dark, like why, it's depressing and I didn't mean for it to go this dark. Sometimes it's because you've literally made a world where everything seems to be in conflict with your main character. And that might not be what you want. That might be overwrought, over dramatic. And then you might want to actually take a step back and be like, okay, what about this world does my main character like? Where do they find their
Mhm.
groove? What makes them really happy? And that's could be just as important as knowing what really bothers them, because you're going to need your highs and your lows in your story. You can't always just be in the worst possible place with the most amount of tension all the time, or you've dialed up to an 11 and there's nowhere to go, right?
Mhm.
Somebody said, I think I'm a pantser. Is there a support group for that? It's not something to get over. It's just a
No.
process. The important thing when you do that is to realize certain aspects of your style. One is that you are going to have to do a fair amount of rewriting because you're finding your way your first time. And then the other thing is you might have a tendency to get stuck. So figure out ways to get past that, you know.
Mhm.
And some of these sort of questions, as you go can help. Because if you ask some questions up front, so it's a little bit of planning, but it's not like your whole book, it can help. You can get a little bit ahead of yourself. So you don't write yourself into corners all the time. Because some
Yeah.
pantsers have that problem where they're just constantly doing that. Do you ever have that problem, Catherine?
Oh, there's.
She just barrels through. She's like, I don't even believe in corners. I just bulldoze them and keep going. I mean,
Look,
sometimes
I
that's
was
how
in a
you do
corner
it,
once
right?
before the dark times. But no, seriously, if you are looking for other pantsers or other writers to connect with, the AutoCrit community,
It
both
is.
on the Pro Mighty Networks for Pro
Yep.
members and the Facebook group, is a huge encouragement and place where you can say, I'm stuck here or I need help with this.
Yeah. People are like halfway between plants, or yeah, most people are in the middle, right? Because most
Mhm.
people don't want to like think of everything, and obviously you can't think of everything, but a lot of people don't want to outline too much because it kind of takes away some of the excitement. So they often are a little bit of a mix, you know. Even some people that are heavy planners, with their characters they'll tend to be a little bit more easygoing about it, or vice versa. Maybe their characters, they really have a strong idea of what they want in life and where they're going, and then they kind of just put them in a room and they see what happens, and things like that. Oh, but I guess that was the end. I was like, I thought that was the end of my stuff. Yeah. So the last point I had was, is the world in conflict with your main character or in harmony with them? You don't we constantly emphasize tension, and I just wanted to find that balance. You don't always have to think of, in a world where everybody wants to kill you. Like, not every story is that, and every story is the Hunger Games, right? Not every story is quite that dark. um there are lots of stories where more or less the world's not the problem. There are people in the world that are the problem, but the world is not the problem, and I would say that's actually the majority of fiction. So don't panic. Don't think world building means making a dystopia every single time, because often that's kind of where people get to, because they start to. I think partly because you start to think of the linking between things and things, and everything starts to become conspiratorial very quickly. Um, and that's another thing too. Is sometimes that can be a little bit convenient, right? If you're just thinking, okay, this links to this and this links to this. Again, in the actual world, we don't necessarily see the cause and effect so directly. So sometimes you knowing it doesn't mean you have to let the audience know it quite at the same level.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
love this. I write outlines and then destroy them as I write. It's great. That's not uncommon. It's not
No.
uncommon. I will say that I have definitely written stuff where I had an outline and I kind of destroyed it, because I just decided, yeah, when I put this together, I was going for the low hanging fruit and I was kind of going for the obvious choice, and I want to do something more interesting. Or just in writing a scene, it had a different emotional um, rhythm than I expected, and it really lent itself to a different place. And Yeah, for sure. Nobody should. There's very few people that just get glued in one way or the other, for sure. I like utopias that are actually dystopias. Isn't that always the case, though? Because if it's not a utopia for anybody, then nobody would want it, right? Just saying, so I certainly hope that you're having fun with this challenge because I am. Thank you, Catherine, for joining me.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, everybody.
Yeah, and
Good luck.
you'll find Catherine in the AutoCrit community as well on the right next on Facebook. So like she said, she's a fellow pantser. So you got pantser questions. She's a great resource for that. Don't forget to sign up for the World Challenge. Yep, if you haven't yet. If you're watching this much later, well, the challenge might be over, but hopefully you've enjoyed all these replays. But we're probably in the middle of another challenge. So look around this YouTube channel and look around because we're almost always doing a challenge. We love to task our writers to do something because it gets them productive, it gets them thinking about their writing and things like that. And if you would like more information about world building, similar to some of the things I shared here, and the ability to get professional feedback on your world building, which is really helpful, we ask a lot of rhetorical questions to just get you thinking because we're trying to find maybe those gaps where you're kind of leaving that free money on the ground where you could get some ideas and build a better world. Take the world building workshop. It's right here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So.
Yes.
But otherwise, thank you so much. We will be back next week for our closing ceremonies for this challenge. Get your submissions in by Sunday. I was gonna say Sunday. Get your submissions in by Sunday, and oh, it's your first time.
Oh,
Woo!
yay!
That's
Welcome.
fantastic. Yes. So anyway, yes, and then next week we will be picking out some things to read live on air. So that'll be fun for you. Don't worry.
Which is optional, right, Daniel?
What?
Which is optional if people don't want us to read theirs on air.
No, no, it's not. We
Oh,
want them to
nice.
get involved. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. You got to put yourself out there with us.
Accountability.
We're like, yeah, accountability, baby. Like we want you. we're throwing you in the deep end. No, but really, like, get your stuff out there. Why not? Why not? We're nice. We really are. I am analytical, but I'm here for you. Any sort of feedback I give you is to try to help you be the best you can be. So
Mm.
don't worry, we're not going to be here and just like snark away and rip it to shreds or something like
Oh,
that.
no.
That's not what we're trying to do. We may have feedback, but again, it is to make sure that you are as good as you possibly can be. And somebody said copyrights, why not? Yes, just so you know though, just because we use it doesn't mean we claim ownership of your idea. So
Mm-mm.
you I think I muted myself for a second. You will still be able to use it for whatever you want. It's still your idea. Now, it might be floated out there because we mentioned it, but you're probably going to change it anyway from this stage. And you could develop it into a book. And if you do that, well, let us know because hey, we could have
Yay.
you on, and you could be the next RJ Barker on our show, and we could talk to you about your writing process, which would be lots of fun.
Oh, so exciting.
I know it's so exciting. We've had people from our challenges go on and submit and get published. So it's so much fun to watch. So we love that. We love watching those careers blossom. Anyway, so please join us next week for that, for prizes and readings and all of that fun stuff. In the meantime, we'll see you around the AutoCrit community. Bye, everybody.
Bye.